Hello, my name is Tara Trisello, and this is my presentation on writing to learn for students with disabilities. As a resource room teacher, when I was learning about writing to learn, I found that the areas that I do, but I need to strengthen with my students is journal writing, summary writing, and composing to learn with multimodal representation. For the journal writing, it's a good way for my students to start to learn how to record their thinking. It's an informal reflection of what they have going on and what they're learning, and it allows them to organize their thoughts and elaborate so they can start thinking about what they might need help with and write that down while they're journal writing. Or maybe something came to them a little later after the lesson was going on. Often with students with special needs, you notice they need that wait time, that thinking time. The journal writing is perfect for them in order to have that wait time, get their thoughts down, and still be able to remember them the next day when they come back to talking with a teacher or maybe talking with a group, whatever it is that they're working on. Summary writing is also a main focus because they need to really see what is the main idea of what I'm learning. This could be seen in all subject areas. Like, what was the teacher's main idea and lesson that they did that day? It could be in math, science, social studies, and they need to make connections. So maybe the teacher was teaching about the powers of 10, and how can they make that connection? Again, this might reflect on journal writing, a kind of a connection altogether of that writing process, figuring out what the main idea and those connections can be. And then also sometimes they need to express that all of this learning in different ways. They need different modes of being able to represent it. Sometimes it might be a pictorial summary because art is something that's a strength to them and a way that they can represent their thinking. Learning disabilities impact writing in many different ways. So, basic learning disabilities, things like ADHD, impact their focus. Often they'll have difficulty reading, language is impacted, which all makes elaborating and making bigger ideas very difficult, especially if they have to get it down on paper. Students who have dyslexia, which this year I have a large population of, their decoding deficits are large, which then impacts their encoding deficits, and revising and editing becomes a difficult task for them. And then executive functioning typically goes along with learning disabilities and dyslexia, where their organization of thinking and then their organization of writing are really impacted. So, in order to address students with writing with dyslexia, it's important to remember that they have average IQs. Their difficulties solely typically lay within encoding and decoding, and they have struggles with their executive functioning. So these are students who are more than capable of thinking of ideas, creating ideas, but that roadblock really hits them hard, and written tasks end up becoming extremely frustrating and they end up shutting down. Studies show that dyslexia impacts writers over the course of their life. The quality of what they're writing, their ability to edit and revise their work is very difficult due to their spelling and language deficits and errors. And they tend to use basic vocabulary so it doesn't sound as powerful just because they can't spell the words that they want to get out. Some strategies to help them are different things such as brainstorming, organizing, making sure you have topic sentences. These are all executive functioning strategies to help these students. Um, there's different ways, shifting perspective, like being flexible with writing. And these are just strategies that Dr. Ross gave on an executive functioning website, which helps to see that maybe the students need to have a bottom up or a top down thinker, see which way they learn best, and provide different organizational tools to help them. This leads into utilizing technology when doing writing to learn. This is something that I'm going to start integrating more into my classes, allowing students to brainstorm, drafting, creating their work, editing and revising. This can all be done through graphic organizers. The benefit to it is that speech to text is available and text to speech. So a student can say what they want into the computer and see it, and then they can hear it back through the speech to text or text to speech. You can use this through journal writing and summarizing. It's a great resource. And it's hard to think of ways that you can do graphic organizers on the computer, but there are so many resources available these days that there are plenty of ways to integrate using these technology tools in order to help students being able to show their learning through writing. And the final strategy that I'm going to focus on in my classroom and to see what my students are really learning is using like an arts-based strategy. Being a resource room teacher, I work with kids at all different age levels in elementary school, so sometimes drawing a picture is the best way to get information. Often, if you ask them to write something, they might not be able to get their sounds together to make coherent words, but they might be able to draw 3 beautiful pictures that they can then describe to you. And then all of a sudden you realize that they can do a beginning, middle, and end. For the older grades, sometimes in different subject areas, it might be easier to do a graph or to do a picture in order to show their thinking rather than writing it, which I often see in math. My students know their math, they can do their math, but then having to answer in writing is very difficult. And that's usually where the roadblock continues. So I want to start using more art based strategies because that will help them express their thinking. There's I found a mnemonic that helped. It's called STORY. So start thinking about who, what, where, why, when, and how. Think about your answers and illustrate them. Organize and say it out loud. Revise your text and type it on the iPad or computer, whatever you have. And you can make edits and revise it for others. So it's just another way of making those steps to also have visual representation. And these are the ways that I'm going to start integrating the writing based learning into my resource room and into my inclusion setting classes with my students. Thank you for listening to my presentation.